Recently, Windows 10 had an update that deprecated SMB1, and which has caused PPG Business Manager to run really slowly. Now, I've had quite a bit of experience with this issue over the last couple of weeks because originally I had the issue with a Linux server because it was running SMB2 and it was causing PPG Business Management to run really slowly. So I couldn't work out at the time what was actually causing it. I didn't know it was the protocol issue. But now in hindsight, that Windows 10 deprecated SMB. I removed it. They deprecated it in 2012, but since they removed it from Windows, that proved that that led me onto a new track. So fortunately, in the last couple of weeks, I've been able to fix this issue. So what I'm doing right now is going to show you guys how I went about fixing it. So right now, I'm currently logged into a client's computer remotely. Actually, I'm logged into two of their computers. I'm logged into their Windows 2008 server, which I set up. It was actually the replacement server for the Linux server that I built him, but I couldn't for the life of me get Linux to run run PPG so that it would to share the files so that it would be really snappy. But I'll show you that in a minute. So I've got two of their computers open at the moment through TeamViewer. So this is one of their workstations, and I'll just quickly show that I also have their server the Windows Server 2008 open as well, which we'll get back to that in a moment. So I'll demonstrate the issue that I'm having right now. So I've got some dummy quotes that I've just listed here. So PPG does work, it just runs really slowly. So we'll get the dummy quotes, because if I load a client's record, that would be devastating. Okay, you can see it's running really slowly. It's taking a while for that quote to load. So this is the problem. Now, I had this problem with the Linux server, and it was really annoying because I built this Linux server. It was great. It ran really great. It wouldn't crash. It had no issues. It was bare bones. It was a Debian build, and I loved it. And it was just this one issue. Now, in hindsight, knowing that I should have been running on SMB1 versus SMB2, see, it finally loaded. Since now in hindsight, I know that I could easily set this replace this server with my Linux server, but the server's there now. Oh, by the way, the reason I'm doing this remotely is because this client, if I was to do this in the daytime, everyone might as well just go home because they rely on this server quite heavily to do this. They rely on this software quite heavily, so there's a lot of people using it at once. And if I was to do anything, that's why I'm doing it at the moment at 8:19 at night, because no one's in the office at the moment. I've got free reign over it because I need to restart these computers to show you this. So you can see that that's running really slowly. Now you know what the problem is. As I was saying, it's the SMB connection, the protocol that's running. So to just help prove that it's running on SMB2, not 3, not 1, we can launch PowerShell and use this get SMB connection command, and you can see the dialect is 2.1, which means that this is indeed running on the 2.1 version of SMB. So now what we'll do is to fix this issue. I've got a few registry edits, but essentially you can Google this, you can look it up online, but essentially you just want to add to the registry a D word and just turn it to 1 for SMB1. Okay? But I've just created these few here. It's all online, you can Google it, how to enable and disable SMB1, SMB2, and SMB3. Now, Windows 2008, this server doesn't actually have SMB3, so this is kind of a mute point down here. So right now, if we were to look at in the registry, we'll see that SMB2's turned on and SMB1's turned off. So what I'll do is I'll turn SMB2 off, and I'll turn SMB1 back on. Now I've got to restart the server for this to take effect. Now, while this is rebooting, I'll also talk about another issue that you're going to face. You've got to, because Windows 10 removed SMB1 from its operating system, you are also going to have to reinstall it. Now, fortunately on this computer here, I can still reinstall it through the Windows features, but eventually that's going to get removed altogether. So eventually you're going to have to go reinstall it yourself. So you can see here I've got SMB1 turned back on. So that was turned off originally when I first booted this computer up. So I've turned it back on. Now, I'm also going to have to, for whatever reason, reboot this computer as well. So as soon as that server comes back online, these still won't connect. I'm not sure. So what I'll do is I'll pause this video right now, and I'll come back in a few minutes when everything's rebooted. Okay, so I've got both of the computers turned back on. After full restarts, you can see the Windows 2008 server here and the workstation here, and we can come into here and just check. Yep, okay, cool. Now we'll just pull up PowerShell before we do anything, and just to confirm what SMB version we're running on. This is important. If you don't do this, you're not going to know what version you're really running on. And we're running on 1.5. So now, if I here comes the happy moment. If I pull up PPG, it will be running silky smooth again. So I haven't been able to test it on version SMB3 yet. Unfortunately, I don't. This server here, Windows 2008, doesn't have SMB3. Maybe I could install it. That might be worth looking into actually, because it's far widely preferable to be running on SMB3 than SMB1. SMB1's 30 years old, by the way. It was deprecated in 2012, so it's really not ideal to be running on. It works though. So what works is what we go with. So we'll load this quote, and there we go. It loaded. We can load another quote. It gets quicker. Every time you load a new quote, it gets quicker and quicker. Load. There we go. Instant loading. I've wasted so many hours on this problem. I'm so glad that I figured it out. It was pretty straightforward. Once Windows turned off support for SMB1, it was very clear what the problem was. It definitely wasn't a weird thing within the update, because remember the Linux server I was talking about had the exact same issue, and that's because I was running on, guess what, SMB2. If I'd installed a older version of Samba that supported SMB1, or set the minimum protocol to SMB1, then it would have been fine. But I was running on SMB2, and I wasn't aware at that moment in time to even consider switching protocols to get over this hurdle. All I knew was that I had a Linux server that no matter what I did on it, no matter what configuration option I checked or unchecked, it was running really slowly. But on a Windows machine doing the exact same thing, sharing folders, it was running really quickly, and I finally worked it out. It was to do with the SMB connections, the protocol connections. Now that Windows 10 has come out and removed that SMB1, so it's not, okay, so another thing to consider, it's not enough just to enable SMB1 in here. If we go into the control panel like we did a moment ago, that's not enough, because you can enable it, but it's still going to connect as an SMB2. You can bring up PowerShell, and you can see that, by the way, when you bring up PowerShell, you have to run it as an administrator. So PowerShell. So just make sure you go right click, run as administrator. Even when you enable on the workstations SMB1, you still have to do it on the server. Preferably, you have to disable SMB2 altogether to force the clients to connect as SMB1. Okay, cool. Any questions? Leave a comment in the leave a message in the comments below, and I will try and help anyone else that's having this issue. As I said, I've spent many hours. I've spent maybe 20 to 15 hours trying to work this issue out on a Linux machine, and then recently I've had to come back to this problem because of Windows doing its magnificent updates. Can't really blame Microsoft though. This is a 30-year-old protocol, SMB1, and it was deprecated in 2012, and it's 2018, so it's like 5 or so years ago, and so it's no wonder that Microsoft would want to remove this feature from their operating system, as well as the fact that SMB1 is like very severely flawed with security. It was designed back in the day where security wasn't as big of a concern as it is now. So, yep, just to refresh, you want to set in here a D word and turn it to 1. So I could bring up the registry to show you that, but I can't really be bothered right now. So yeah, good luck and good night.